Learn grammar, direct and indirect speech. Direct and indirect speech. There are two ways by which we may report or narrate what a speaker said. Direct speech. In direct speech, the speaker's exact words are given. Look at the following example. Paul said, "I am tired now." Note the punctuation marks in this sentence. The exact words of the speaker are put in inverted commas. I am tired now. The exact words of the speaker are put in inverted commas. There is a comma after the reporting verb. Said is the reporting verb. There is a comma after it. The quoted words begin with a capital letter. The quoted words of the speaker Paul begin with a capital letter. Here, I am tired. So it is in capital letters. So this sentence, Paul said, "I am tired now," is in the direct speech. Indirect speech. In indirect speech, only the substance of what the speaker said is given and not the exact words. Look at the following example. Paul said that he was very tired then. So this is in the indirect speech. Only the substance of what the speaker said is given and not the exact words. Note, here the reported words are not put within inverted commas but are introduced by the conjunction that. This is the conjunction that which comes after the reporting verb said, and there are no inverted commas here in the reported words. So this sentence, Paul said that he was very tired then, is in the indirect speech. Let us understand the rules for changing direct into indirect speech. Look at the sentence. He said, comma, open the inverted comma, I write a letter, full stop, close the inverted comma. Here, said is called as the reporting verb. The first rule is changes in the tense of the verb of the direct speech. If the reporting verb is in the past tense, this reporting verb said, it is in the past tense, the following changes take place in the tense of the verb in the indirect speech. Simple present becomes simple past. Look at this example. He said, comma, open the inverted comma, I write a letter, full stop, close the inverted comma. This is in the direct speech. We have to change it into the indirect speech. The rule is that if the reporting verb is in the past tense, here said is in the past tense, the following changes will take place in the tense of the verb. So the tense of the verb here, I write a letter, is in the simple present. So it becomes simple past in the indirect speech. So write will become wrote. So the sentence in the indirect will be, he said that he wrote a letter. After the reporting verb said, you will use the conjunction that. The personal pronouns, the first and the second person will become in the third person. So I will become he. This write, which is in the simple present, will become wrote in the simple past. So he said that he wrote a letter. This is in the indirect speech. So the simple present, I write a letter, becomes he wrote a letter in the simple past. Present continuous becomes past continuous tense in the indirect speech. Look at the following example. He said, I am writing a letter. So this am writing a letter, it is in the present continuous tense. So in the indirect speech, it will become, he said that he was writing a letter. It will become past continuous tense. Was writing. So here the reporting verb is in the past, so the tense also will be in the past in the indirect speech. If it is present continuous, it will become past continuous. So I am writing a letter will be he was writing a letter. We know what are the other changes. You use that after the reporting verb. The pronouns, the first person or the second person will become into the third person. So I will become he. So the sentence reads, he said that he was writing a letter. So this is in the past continuous tense. Present perfect becomes past perfect. Look at this sentence. He said, I have written a letter. Have written. It is in the present perfect. So what is the past perfect of have written? It is had written. So in the indirect speech, it will be he said that he had written a letter. We know you have to use that after the reporting verb in the indirect speech. You'll also change the pronoun. So first person or second person will become the third person. So it is here. So the sentence reads, he said that he had written a letter. The next example, present perfect continuous becomes past perfect continuous tense. So the sentence reads, he said, I have been writing a letter. So have been writing a letter is in the present perfect continuous tense. So that will become the past perfect continuous tense. So it will be had been writing a letter. So the sentence in the indirect, he said that he had been writing a letter. We know the changes. After the reporting verb, you use that. The pronoun will change to the third person, he. So he said that he had been writing a letter is in the indirect speech. It is in the past perfect continuous tense. So remember children, present continuous tense will become past continuous tense in the indirect speech. Present perfect becomes past perfect in the indirect speech. Present perfect continuous becomes past perfect continuous in the indirect speech. Simple past becomes past perfect. Look at the following example. He said, I wrote a letter. So wrote is in the simple past. So in the indirect, it will become past perfect tense. Had written. So the sentence in the indirect, he said that he had written a letter. We know after the reporting verb said, you have to use the conjunction that. The pronoun in the first or the second person will become in the third person. So here it is, I has become he. He said that he had written a letter. This is in the indirect speech. Past continuous tense becomes past perfect continuous. Look at the sentence. He said, I was writing a letter. So was writing is in the past continuous tense. It will become had been writing, that is in the past perfect continuous tense. So in the indirect speech, he said that he had been writing a letter. Past perfect and past perfect continuous tense has no change. He said, I had written a letter. That's in the past perfect. So in the indirect, there is no change. It remains had written only. So the sentence in the indirect, he said that he had written a letter. He said, I had been writing a letter. Had been writing is the past perfect continuous tense. So in the indirect, it remains the same. Had been writing. Look at this. Had been writing. Only the change is after the reporting verb, you use that and the pronoun changes to the third person. The first person has become the third person. So he said that he had been writing a letter. This is in the indirect speech. So remember, simple past becomes past perfect in the indirect. Past continuous tense becomes past perfect continuous tense in the indirect speech. And past perfect and past perfect continuous tense has no change in the indirect speech. Future tense becomes future conditional tense. Look at the following sentence. He said, I will write a letter. So will write is in the future tense. So it becomes would write. That is called as the future conditional tense. So in the indirect, he said that he would write a letter. This is in the indirect speech. We know the other changes. After said, use the conjunction that. The pronoun here changes to the third person. So I has become he. And will write is would write. Will is changed into would. Shall is changed into should. Can is changed into could. May is changed into might. If the reporting verb is in the present or future tense, the tense of the verb is not changed in the indirect speech. Look at this sentence now. He says, I write a letter. The reporting verb here is says. It is in the present tense. So if the reporting verb is in the present tense, then the tense of the verb is not changed in the indirect. So write has become writes. So it is the same tense. I write a letter, which is in the simple present. Even in the indirect, the tense has not changed. It has remained in the simple present tense only. The other changes in the indirect speech, after the reporting verb here says, you will use the conjunction that. The pronoun in the first person has become in the third person, he. So therefore it will be he writes. You cannot just say he write. It will be writes. He says that he writes a letter. So there is no change in the tense of the verb. If it is in the simple present here, it is in the simple present also in the indirect speech. He will say. Here this reporting verb is in the future tense. So if the reporting verb is in the future tense, the tense is not changed in the indirect speech. You see here, I write a letter. So it remains the same tense. He writes a letter. So the tense is in the simple present tense only. In the direct speech also it is in the simple present tense, and the indirect speech also it is in the simple present tense. Why the tense is not changed? Because the reporting verb is in the future tense. And the rule says that if the reporting verb is in the present or it is in the future tense, then the tense of the verb does not change in the indirect speech. So therefore, he says, I write a letter. In the indirect, it will be he says that he writes a letter. He will say, I write a letter. In the indirect, it will be he will say that he writes a letter. So if the reporting verb is in the present or future tense, the tense of the verb is not changed in the indirect speech. The first and the second person in the direct speech becomes the third in the indirect speech. In the earlier slides, I already told you how the pronouns in the first and the second person, they change to the third person. So now this is also to be learned as a rule. He said, I watch a film. He said that he. So here it is just to make you understand that I, which is in the first person, has become he in the third person. So he said that he watched a film. I is changed into he or she. We becomes they. You becomes they, he or she. My will become his or her. Our will become their. Your, their, his or her. And me is changed to him or her. So these are the changes in the pronouns. The first person and the second person becomes the third person in the indirect speech. The next rule, if the person addressed to reports the speech, the second person in the direct becomes the first person in the indirect speech. Look at this sentence. He said to me, you are a liar. So you see this you is in the second person. It is in the direct speech. It will become you has changed to I, that is the first person in the indirect speech. So he said to me that I was a liar. He said to me, you have won the first prize. So he said to me that I had won the first prize. We know this second person in the direct speech becomes the first person in the indirect speech. Have one has become had one. The present perfect will become past perfect. Here, simple present will become simple past. So, are will become was. But here, this rule is only to make you understand that the second person in the direct has become into the first person in the indirect if the person addressed to reports the speech. If it is like that, he said to me, you are a liar. So he said to me that I was a liar. He said to me, you have won the first prize. So in the indirect, it will be he said to me that I had won the first prize. Words expressing nearness in time and place are generally changed into words expressing distance. This is another rule for changing from direct to indirect. If there are words expressing nearness in time and place in the direct speech, then those words will change into words expressing distance in the indirect speech. Look at this following example. He said, I am ready here now. So in the indirect, it will be he said that he was ready there then. So here has become there and now will become then. So here, which is a word expressing nearness in place, has become a word expressing distance there. Now, which is a word expressing nearness in time, has become into a word expressing distance, that is then. So these are the changes with regards to the words expressing nearness in time and place. So here has become there, now has become then. And the other changes we have already studied. That is, after said, you will use the conjunction that, the pronouns change to the third person, the tense of the verb also changes. So am will become was. Am, which is in the simple present, will become in the simple past, that is was. So the sentence in the indirect speech, he said that he was ready there then. She said, I came 2 months ago. So here, ago is the word which expresses nearness in time and it has changed to before. So in the indirect speech, it will be she said that she had come 2 months before. The other changes in this sentence after said use that, the pronoun I has become she, then came, which is in the simple past, came, has become into the past perfect, had come. And this ago has become before. These are the changes in the words expressing nearness in time and place. They become words expressing distance and you are supposed to learn all this. So now becomes then, this becomes that, these becomes those, year becomes there, ago becomes before, thus becomes so, today becomes that day, tomorrow becomes the next day or the following day, yesterday becomes the day before or the previous day, last night becomes the night before, next week or year becomes the following week or year, last week or year becomes the previous week or year. So children, you are supposed to study all these words expressing nearness in time and place, how they are changed into words expressing distance. So all has to be studied. This is another rule for changing from direct to indirect speech. Rule for interrogative sentences. If it is an interrogative sentence in the direct speech, how it has to be changed into the indirect speech. To report question in indirect speech, the reporting verb is changed into asked or inquired. Look at the following example. He said, who are you? So this is an interrogative sentence. We have to report this question in the indirect speech. So the reporting verb, that is said, has changed to asked. You can change it to asked or inquired. So you will say, he asked him who he was. Look at the form that you will follow while reporting a question in the indirect speech. The reporting verb that is asked, use a suitable object. So he asked him. This is him is the suitable object. You could use any suitable object. You could also use he asked her. Then the question word, that is who. Are you? Now here the subject. Now here the subject, if I would say her, then it would be she. So because I have used him, so I will use the subject he. So the question word who, the subject is he, and the verb here is was. Are, which is in the simple present, will become was in the simple past. That is also the rule that we have to follow. If the reporting verb is in the past, then the tense also changes to the past. So the sentence in the indirect speech, he asked him who he was. So let's go through the form again. So reporting verb asked, suitable object him, the question word who, the subject is he, and the verb here is was. If it is a yes no question, then if or whether is used after the reporting verb. Look at the following example. He said, are you happy here? Now, are you happy here? This is a yes no type of a question. If someone asks you, are you happy? You will answer it either yes, I am happy, or no, I am not happy. So therefore, are you happy here? This is a yes no type of a question. So if there is a yes no type of a question, then you will use if or whether after the reporting verb. The reporting verb has to be changed to asked or inquired. So he inquired is used here. If, see here, you have to use if or whether after the reporting verb. So he inquired if they were happy there. So the form is reporting verb, inquired, if, then the suitable subject, they, and the verb. Now, are, because it is they, so it will be were, not they was. They were happy here. Now, we have already learned words expressing nearness in time and place becomes words expressing distance. So, here will become there. So, the sentence in the indirect, he inquired if they were happy there. If I would say he inquired if he was happy there, you could also have a subject as he or she. But here I have taken it as they. She said, will you do me a favor? So you will write, she asked him whether he would do a favor for her. You could also write it like that. She asked him whether he would do her a favor. Both the ways are correct. So here it is the reporting verb asked. Then here there is a suitable object put here in this sentence. So the suitable object is him. Then you use if or whether. Here I have used whether. So because you have used suitable object him, it will be he. So she asked him whether he would do a favor for her. We know that will become would. So she asked him whether he would do a favor for her is in the indirect speech. Imperative sentences. What are imperative sentences? Sentence with a command or a request. So if there is an imperative sentence in the direct speech, how has it to be changed in the indirect speech? Rule. If it is a command, change the reporting verb to told, ordered, or commanded. Look at the sentence. The father said to his son, go and pay your fees at once. So here this reporting verb said has to be changed to either told, ordered, or commanded. Why? Because this is a command. Go and pay your fees at once. This is an imperative sentence. So therefore the reporting verb said will change to told. So the father told his son. Now look at this here, to go and pay his fees at once. So you see this command, go and pay your fees at once, it has changed into the infinitive mood. So go has become to go. So to go and pay his fees at once. We know the changes in the pronouns. The captain said to his men, stand at ease. So here again, this said has changed to commanded. Here the rule says no that if it is a command, then this reporting verb has to be changed to told, ordered, or commanded. So here in this sentence, I have written it as commanded. The captain commanded his men. This is the command, stand at ease. So it is changed into the infinitive mood to stand. Look at here. This I have written here. Stand at ease becomes to stand at ease. So this is in the infinitive mood. To stand at ease. So the sentence in the indirect, the captain commanded his men to stand at ease. Note, the order or command is changed into the infinitive mood. Imperative sentences, if there is a negative command. This is another rule. Negative commands are changed into the indirect speech by not plus the infinitive. Look at this example. The captain said to his soldiers, don't return the fire. Now this is a negative command. So it has to be changed into the indirect by using not and into the infinitive mood. So you will write the captain ordered his soldiers not to return the fire. So don't return has become not to return. So you're using not, and return you will use the infinitive. So to return the fire. So this is in the indirect speech. The principal said to the students, don't go in. So don't go in is a negative command. So the said, we already have studied that if it's an imperative sentence and the reporting verb said has to be changed to told, ordered, or commanded. So here we have taken it as told. So the principal told the students, again, don't go in. Not to go is the infinitive. Not to go in. The next rule for changing from direct to indirect speech. When let is used for some suggestion, the reporting verb can be changed to suggested in the indirect speech. Look at the following example. He said, let's listen to some music. So here, this is a sentence with let. It is used for some suggestion. So what happens is the reporting verb said has to be changed to suggested. So the sentence in the indirect will be, he suggested that we should listen to some music. Now why we? Because it is let us. So us will become we, that we should listen to some music. Exclamatory sentences. In reporting exclamations or wishes in the indirect speech, reporting verbs such as exclaimed or wished or prayed may be used. Sometimes phrases such as with joy, with sorrow, with regret are added to the reporting verb to retain the original sense of the sentence. Look at the following example. The little girl said, how clever am I? How clever am I is an exclamatory sentence. Now, the reporting verb is said. So the rule says that we have to change this reporting verb to exclaimed, wished, or prayed. So I have taken it as exclaimed. So the little girl exclaimed. We know the rule that after the reporting verb you will use that. The pronoun in the first person has become into the third person. So I has become she. That she, the verb, the tense of the verb. This is in the simple present. So in the indirect, it will become the simple past. So am will become was. So the little girl exclaimed that she was very clever. So this is in the indirect speech. The next example, Manoj said, alas, I have wasted all my money. So in the indirect, it is written as Manoj exclaimed. The said will change to exclaim. Manoj exclaimed. Now this phrase is added with regret. It is added to the reporting verb to retain the original sense of the sentence. Manoj exclaimed with regret. Then you will use the conjunction that. He. I will become he. the third person. The pronoun has changed from first person to the third person. Had wasted. Have wasted, which is in the present perfect, will become in the past perfect. So had wasted all his money. So this sentence, Manoj exclaimed with regret that he had wasted all his money, is in the indirect speech. Universal truths and habitual facts. In the case of a universal truth or a habitual fact, no change is made in the tense of the verb. So this is with regards to universal truths and habitual facts. There is no change made in the tense of the verb when it has to be changed into the indirect speech. Look at this sentence. Mrs. Jones said to her class, water is a precious natural resource. So this is a universal truth. So therefore, the tense is not changed at all, even in the indirect speech. Though this is in the past tense, the reporting verb is in the past tense, said. The rule says that if it is in the past tense, then the tense of the verb changes in the indirect speech. But in cases of universal truth or habitual fact, it has not to be changed. Only here, instead of said, here in the indirect, we have taken it as told. Mrs. Jones told her class that, you will use the conjunction that, water is a precious natural resource. The tense remains the same, even in the indirect speech. The next sentence, India is a land of mixed cultures, said Ajay to his friends. So in the indirect speech, Ajay told his friends that India is a land of mixed cultures. So the tense remains the same. India is a land of mixed cultures. Over here, it is in the direct speech. In the indirect speech also, the tense has not changed.